Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. So I'm here with my September most anticipated releases video, and that means that the summer is almost over, which makes me sad because I love summer because I visit my parents at the beach and that is like my paradise. And so when summer starts to end, it is kind of sad for me, but you know I'm a fall girl, and a big part of that is because of the books that come out in the fall. Fall is a huge release season and we got a lot of horror and spooky books. And it's so funny, I actually have like a Christmas romance on here as well. So yeah, I do like fall season in terms of reading, and it is really beautiful. So this is a long list as always, so let's get into this. So let's start with September 5th, and the first book that I'm really excited about is The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White, who wrote Hallowed with Us, which has been on my radar since it came out. It was in this video probably last year, and I've been meaning to read it ever since, and so many people adore it, and I know I will as well. So ideally, I want to read that one before this one, but this sounds so good. And I think we just have to acknowledge that this author gets the greatest covers. I am in love with these covers, and these are YA like horror fantasy. But this one in particular I'm really excited about because it's set in London in 1883, and it follows a character named Silas who has violet eyes and is a medium, and this character is transgender and he is also autistic, and his mom really wants him to get married, and obviously he does not want that at all, and he becomes a little bit rebellious and he's sent to this boarding school, and there are some horrors happening there. I think he's actually being haunted by former students because he is a medium and he's trying to get justice for them. So when the ghosts of missing students start begging Silas for help, he decides to reach into Braxton's innards and expose his rotten guts to the world, as long as the school doesn't break him first. So I think this could be really fantastic, and I've heard good things about this author in general, and yeah, obviously these covers are amazing. I do appreciate a locked room mystery every once in a while, and the fact that this one is centered around a 1920s themed party is fun for me, and I do like YA mysteries, YA horror. I don't know why YA in particular, but I think they're just more campy and fun for me. So this is Suddenly a Murder by Laura Munoz, and the tagline is "One of us in the manor with the knife." So you know it's got a Clue reference in there, and I'm hoping this works for me because historically, like Clue, Agatha Christie retellings that are contemporary aren't always my favorite, but I'm hoping the 1920s angle in this works for me. So it's about a group of friends who are graduating high school, and to celebrate they rent out this manor and decide to have like a murder mystery party or something. It's like 1920s themed, but then one of the boyfriends ends up murdered, and then there's an investigation and all of them are forced to stay in this manor while the police investigate, and obviously one of them did it. So could be a fun time. I'm always on the lookout for new haunted house releases because I love them. I love when the house itself is a character, and this sounds like a perfect one. It's called The September House by Carissa Orlando, and it comes out in September, so that is perfect. And this follows a couple who buy like their dream home for a really affordable price, and they think that this is a real win for them, but they soon realize that there's a reason this house is so affordable, because it's haunted, and every September the house comes alive. I think like blood drips down the wall and everything, and the husband after a few years has just had enough of this and he disappears, and their daughter is an adult, so she is not aware of what happens in September, but she comes home to her mom. Happens to be the start of September, and they're trying to find the husband, and obviously some creepy things happen, and I've been hearing some good things about this already. I just love that setup, and I love that it sounds like in this book in particular the house is truly a character. It really comes to life more than just like a ghost story. Like this house is sentient, and that sounds perfect for me. Then I have, of course, another YA horror, and it also looks to be like a slasher, and it's giving me Clown on the Cornfield vibes, so hopefully those are comparable because I really did have a fun time with that book. And this one's There's No Way I Die First by Lisa Springer, and this is her debut, and I'm going to read you the first paragraph because I think it sets it up perfectly. It says, it's a spine-tingling contemporary horror that follows a scary movie buff as she hosts an elaborate Halloween bash on her family's estate, but soon finds that the festivities upended when she and her guests are forced to test their survival skills in a deadly party game. So it sounds like a perfect book to read on Halloween, since it's obviously set on Halloween itself, so maybe I'll save it for that time. And this book actually has one of my biggest fears in it, and I think that she hires like a low budget entertainment version of Pennywise from It by Stephen King, and this clown goes rogue and starts killing people. And if you know anything about me, clowns are my biggest fear. I am terrified of clowns. I hate everything about clowns. I've always hated clowns. They're awful. And I love to read about them in my horror though, because obviously I want to be scared, and that is my biggest fear. So we will see how I handle that. But yeah, that's why I think it's got that clown in a cornfield vibe. And it just looks like a spooky, scary, slashery, good teen time. So I love teen slashers in particular. So yeah, that's definitely high on my radar, maybe for Halloween time. This next one, I remember when this was announced and seeing the cover for a while now. So I'm excited that it's finally coming out. And this is A Shot in the Dark by Victoria Lee. And Victoria Lee has been an author who's been on my radar for ages. I own some of her books. I've always been curious about her work. So I definitely want to try and prioritize her stuff. And it says it's an emotionally powerful romance novel about two people finding love after struggling with addiction, ultimately discovering what it means to be completely and unapologetically themselves. So this seems to lean more contemporary, which I think is different from at least what I know of her backlist, so that'll be intriguing. So it follows these two characters who have struggled with addiction in the past. One of our main characters grew up Orthodox and struggled with substance abuse and was kind of ostracized from the church, left Brooklyn because of it, but is now back because I think she has a really good job opportunity, or like to enroll in an arts class or something like that. She goes out to a club, has a one-night stand, goes to class the next day and realizes that the person that she had a one-night stand with happens to be her teacher. And the teacher's name is Wyatt, and he also has a past with substance abuse and his own struggles, but he was a very well-known artist, and he came out as transgender, and because of that he was dishonorably discharged from the military, started to abuse alcohol or drugs, and then is now in sobriety. So these two characters obviously connect through their recovery and having similar struggles. And I love books set around the art world. You know this about me, so I think this could be a really beautiful book, and I have been dying to try something by Victoria Lee. This next one, I saw the cover on Twitter and you know I added it right away. This is Providence Girls by Morgan Dante, and yeah, look at this cover. It looks so perfect, and I'm hoping that this is on KU, but if not, I will probably still buy a copy because I'm so intrigued by it. It says, love changes you, so do outer gods. Now, alone in a cottage, Lavinia writes to the woman she loved 15 years ago. Middle-aged Lavinia Watley escapes her hilly Massachusetts town when the townfolk decide to sacrifice her on Halloween. After almost dying in the woods, she's saved and housed by the stoic and mysterious Asnathwaite, or Azzy. On the coastal outskirts of the East Providence, they start to fall in love. However, things change when Azzy, with her secret past and the strange scars on the side of her neck, begins to transform into an eldritch creature of the sea. Yeah, that sounds like the perfect romance to me. You know, I'm in a fantasy romance moment right now, and yeah, this just sounds perfect. And Halloween, so that could be interesting. Moving on to September 12th, we have a poetry collection, probably the first poetry collection I've ever put in one of these videos, but it's the third book in this series of poetry collections that I absolutely love. And this one is Persephone Made Me Do It by Trisha Mateer. The first one was, I should know this, Aphrodite Made Me Do It. Was that the first one? I should look these up. Okay, yeah, the first one was Aphrodite Made Me Do It. The second one was Artemis Made Me Do It. And this one is Persephone Made Me Do It. So these are all poetry collections, and there's like collages and illustrations and stuff from the author in there as well, where we go back and forth in perspective from the Greek character that she's talking about. So in this case, it'll be Persephone, and then poems from the author's own voice, and she parallels her life to what we know of the characters, so Persephone in this case. And it really is a way for her to get out her anger. And if you know anything about how women are treated in Greek mythology, you might understand where her anger is coming from. And if you relate to that kind of thing, it's really powerful, and I do myself, and it's the only poetry collections that I have really appreciated. So I didn't know that this was a series until this year, and I love it. So I'm really, really excited about this. And obviously Persephone is a character I'm pretty familiar with, so I'm curious to see how she writes her voice. So that'll be interesting. So then we have, of course, a witchy rom-com. You know that is my jam, and this one is giving me like practical magic because there's a family curse, and Gilmore Girls because it seems to be cozy vibes, like small town. And this is Witch of Wild Things by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland, and first of all, I love the cover, and it's a second chance romance. It has that trope, of course, where our main character left her small town, never wanted to come back, but then for whatever reason has to return and falls back in love with an old fling, I love that she kind of has nature magic. She can communicate with plants, and I just read A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, and the main character in that had that magic as well. And that is the kind of witchy magic that I really tend to appreciate and like to read about. So if you know of any others like that, please let me know. This next one is an anthology, and that's actually a dark academia anthology collection, which could be really good. It's called In These Hallowed Halls, which is the perfect title. And it is edited by Maria O'Regan and Paul Kane. But there's some recognizable authors in here and some that are new to me, and you know I like a dark academia, especially in the fall. It's a perfect time for it. So obviously Olivia Blake, who I have a complicated relationship with, but you will see my wrap up. I just read something by her that I actually really liked, so that makes me happy. ML Rio, who wrote If We Were Villains, and I adored that book and have been waiting for more writing from them ever since. So even if this is just a short story, I'm excited about it. And those are the only two, I believe, that I recognize, which is fun. So maybe I can discover some new authors here. But yeah, I love dark academia. I don't think I've ever read a short story. It's dark academia. I wonder if it will work in such a short form, but we will see. It sounds fun. And I know one that so many of us are excited about. I haven't read Bunny yet, I have to tell you, but I did read All's Well, and this is Rouge by Mona Awad. And this is a book that really shines a light on the toxicity of the beauty industry while also being a horror, which I think is really compelling. And I've heard that this is a mix of Snow White. So obviously I think mirrors play a lot into this, like mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all kind of thing. And Eyes Wide Shut, which Eyes Wide Shut I know is a movie from the 90s. I think Nicole Kidman's in it, but I've never seen it, so I don't know the premise of that. So that could be an interesting combination, let me know. And the first paragraph says, it's a horror-tinted gothic fairy tale about a lonely dressed shop clerk whose mother's unexpected death sends her down a treacherous path in pursuit of youth and beauty. Can she escape her mother's fate and find a connection that is more than skin deep? So yeah, I think I really like the way that Mona Awad looks at humanity and just how the horrors of the human race. So I think that could be really good. Next we have one that is apparently for fans of Supernatural and Lovecraft Country, and now I'm a huge Supernatural fan, and this sounds so good. It's Monstrous by Jessica Lewis, who wrote Bad Witch Burning, which I do have the audiobook of and need to get to because I have heard good things about that. And the tagline here says, don't go outside past dark, come straight home after church, and above all, never, never go into Redwood. And I actually think that this is sort of a survival story with like a supernatural element. We're following a character named Lativia who is sent to her aunts during the summer for 6 weeks, and those are the rules that her aunts gives her. And obviously she disobeys, she's drawn to the woods, and she is then taken as a human sacrifice and has to try to survive. So yeah, that could be tense, and you know I like YA horror, so that is definitely one that's high on my list. I am realizing just how many witchy stories are on my list, and I am not at all complaining about it. So here's another one. It is called This Spells Disaster, which is so cute. This is by Tori Ann Martin, and it says that this is a fake dating, which is one of my favorite tropes, gets a magical twist in this enchanting queer romantic comedy where a witch worries that the real feelings brewing between her and her crush were sparked by an accidental love potion, and the only way out of the disastrous spell is a healthy dose of truth. Drink up, witches. Cute. It's gonna be ridiculous and corny. That is what I want. I kind of love that accidental love potion trope. I've read that a few times, and I think it's kind of fun, like you're trying to navigate if these feelings are real or is it just because of this love potion. We got that in that time I got drunk and needed a love potion at A Werewolf by Kimberly Lemming, and I realized I think that's kind of a fun trope. So yeah, I can't wait for this. This cover is really cute as well. I've been seeing this next one around quite a bit, and this is The Death I Gave Him by M.X. Liu, and this is a queer sci-fi retelling of Hamlet by Shakespeare. So they're saying that this is a modern day Hamlet, which I can get behind. So this follows a character named Hayden who is in a lab with his father, and his father ends up being murdered, and he's thinking that there's only one reason why his father would be murdered, and that is because they have created this potion or something that can reverse death. And then through this investigating and researching, Hayden finds some tapes and recordings from his father where his father has one message, and that is to avenge his death. So it's also a locked room mystery because the labs are in lockdown and he's trapped with 4 other characters and kind of has to figure out whodunit. So yeah, that sounds interesting for sure. Okay, this cover alone screams the perfect fall rom-com, and I find it so easy to find like holiday romances, summery romances, but fall can be a little bit more difficult. So You Again by Kate Goldbeck sounds perfect for me. And it says, can they stop hating each other long enough to fall in love? A commitment phobe and a hopeless romantic clash over and over again until heartbreak and unexpected chemistry bring them together in this clever enemies to friends to lovers debut romance. I like that, where you go from enemies to friends and then to lovers. I like that. So we're gonna get a slow burn. I'm here for a slow burn fallish romance. So it follows these two characters who met 8 years ago, were complete opposites, didn't like each other. The only thing they had in common was that they were sleeping with the same woman. And then we go into the future and they're both going through a breakup and they reconnect and they think it's just going to be like a friends with benefits kind of thing, and it turns into something more. So sounds sweet. So we're moving on to September 15th, and I will admit that the first one we have here, the cover caught my eye, and then the tagline. So this is Heart of Night and Fire by Nisha J. Tooley, and the tagline says, an absolutely addictive slow burn fantasy romance. I just made a video where I talked about my fantasy romance TBR, and I said slow burn, the more slow burn the books are, the better. I love a slow burn romance. So this one sounds great, and it's the first book in the Nightfire Quartet, so 4 books in the series. And it's a city of magic, a passion born in dreams, a secret that will set their world aflame. Packed with enemies to lovers tension, common theme in this list, heart-pounding action, and a devastating twist, the Nightfire Quartet is an epic fantasy romance that begins with a slow burn and builds in intensity. So I like that the fantasy elements seem to be at the forefront here, and they say that this is perfect for fans of Carissa Broadbent, and I really did like the 2 books that I read from her. So this follows a character who's actually trapped in a gilded prison because her magic is forbidden, and one day she escapes and she discovers a whole new world. She goes to a library trying to research some stuff about her magic, and then obviously meets a man that she can't quite trust, and we get this enemies to lovers thing. But I think the fantasy elements, as I said, are going to be at the forefront here. I'm really excited about the world building. I'm getting the impression that all 4 books are going to follow the same couple, so super slow burn, and I am ready for it. That's the only one for September 15th, and so then I have September 19th, and the first one is an anthology collection, and this is Never Whistle at Night. And it is edited by Shane Hawk and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr. And there's actually an introduction by Stephen Graham Jones, who I adore, and I know many of you do as well. So this is an Indigenous dark fiction anthology, which is so fun. And there are some authors in here obviously I recognize, and some that are new to me. So Darcy Little Badger's in here, Tommy Orange, who I really like, and Rebecca Roanhorse, who I also have really liked in the past. Wabgishik Rice, who wrote the Moon-Crusted Snow one that I read last year and I really appreciated, and I think we're getting a sequel to that soon. So, and then a ton of new authors to me, so again, a good way to discover some new authors. And it says, these wholly original and shiver-inducing tales introduce readers to ghosts, curses, hauntings, monstrous creatures, complex family legacies, desperate deeds, and chilling acts of revenge. So yeah, all buzzwords for me. Sounds like a good time. Another witchy one. I can't help myself. There's so many this year, and I'm not complaining. As I said, this is The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brianne Randall, and again, another one that seems to be for fans of practical magic and Grandma Girls. That is just the vibe that we all look for with witchy romances, right? And it is a debut, and it explores the shields we build around our hearts to retain our own magic. So this follows a character named Sadie, who's obviously a witch, and her grandmother dies, and she encourages her brother to return home, and he brings a lot of family secrets back with him. Her first love and her first heartbreak also returns to the town, and obviously they have some kind of second chance romance, but I think it's more about the family secrets and how the grandmother really was the person who kept the family together and held all the family secrets, and now that's all going to be unleashed and unraveled, and she's kind of in the middle of all this. So it seems like there's a lot going on here, but something that I will appreciate. Now this was a cover ad. I have heard of John Scalzi. I have been curious about all of his books. They always sound really interesting, but this is the one I'm going to start with. There's no debate here. It's a cat in a suit. This is starter villain. I don't even care what this is about. This cat is wearing a suit. I'm going to read it. And the tagline says, meet the new boss. So yeah, that sounds fun. And it is a unique sci-fi that is set in the strangest of all worlds, present-day Earth. Inheriting your mysterious uncle's supervillain business is much more complicated than you might imagine. Sure, there are things you'd expect: the undersea volcano layers, the minions, the plots to take over the world, the international networks of rivals who want you dead. Much harder to get used to are the sentient, language-using, computer-savvy cats, and the fact that in the overall organizations, their management. So this could be terrible or it could be absolutely amazing, and I am leaning towards the fact that it's gonna be amazing. So that will be one I read the moment it comes out, because if I'm anything, I am a cat lover. Then we have another YA mystery that looks like it could be fun and something you could read pretty quickly. It's How to Find a Missing Girl by Victoria Wolsick, and it says, when girls start disappearing, secrets will spill. And I kind of love this cover. It is for fans of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I think a lot of these are obviously comp to that, which I haven't read yet, and Veronica Mars, and I was a huge Veronica Mars fan. And it's a whip-smart thriller that follows a sapphic detective agency as they seek the truths behind a growing trail of missing girls in a small town in Louisiana. So I think that's all we need to know about that one. Looks fun. We are getting a new book from Mara Wilsner, who I love. I loved Mistakes Were Made when I read it last year. It is a super steamy age gap sapphic romance, and I was all about it. So her new one is Cleat Cute, and obviously this is revolves around soccer, and it just follows two women who happen to be on the same soccer team, and they despise each other, but they start to fall in love in preparation for the World Cup. So the fact that the World Cup, I think, is still going on, I don't follow it, but it just seems timely. And yeah, this just, I know I like this author. I'm going to appreciate this book. And yeah, it's very different from the other books on my list that tend to be leaning towards more witchy, horror, thriller kind of thing. So we need some cute contemporary in there as well. Another author I've been meaning to read from for ages is Ava Reid, and her new one, I am in love with this cover, and it's called A Study in Drowning. So this follows a character who always grew up believing in fairy tales, and she's been haunted by the Fairy King, and she reads this book where a mortal girl falls in love with a fairy king, and she's always found solace in this book and like keeps a tattered copy with her. And she's in architecture school, and she learns about this contest where people are able to compete to be able to redecorate or redesign the author of this book's home. So obviously she participates in this, and when she is there, she meets her rival, who is going through this author's letters and stuff to try and prove that he's a fraud, and they must have some kind of romance. So I'm not sure how paranormal this is. I've been thinking this fairy king must turn up, but I'm curious about it. There seems to be like an academia vibe to it as well, and the cover is fantastic, and I have heard good things about Ava Reid as an author. This seems to be an ongoing theme, but another author I've been curious about, and just deep down I think that the genre she's writing in is going to be, for me, I think it's like cozy horror. So this is Rachel Harrison, and her new book is called Black Sheep. So this follows a woman named Vesper who grew up in a really religious household and has left that all behind. But one day she gets an invitation to her cousin's wedding, and it's going to be on the family farm, and for some reason she is compelled to attend the wedding, and she's going to be reunited with her mom, who I think was like, I think if she was a horror actor, yeah, she's a horror film star in Forever Ice Queen, and her return home brings back all these family secrets that she now has to navigate. So I don't know how witchy this gets, or if it gets paranormal or spooky as well, because I thought that Rachel Harrison kind of leads into the supernatural, so we will see, but yeah, I'm into it. So moving on to September 28th, and here is the first holiday romance I'm gonna talk about this year, and I know so many of you have been into hockey romances, so this could be a good one. It's called Time to Shine by Rachel Reid, and a merry and bright hockey romance about finding your place, finding your people, and finding your way back to the one you love most. That is so cute. So this seems to be kind of a opposite attract kind of thing, so it follows Casey and Landon, who are on the same hockey team in Calgary, and they couldn't be more different. One of them is shy or more standoffish and just gives one-word answers, and the other is kind of sunshine and doesn't let that faze him, and they happen to be roommates and they fall in love. So sounds sweet. I wonder how holiday it gets, because I want my holiday romances to feel like it's Christmas time or the holiday season, so I'm hoping it really leans into that. I haven't read a ton of hockey romances, or any that I can think of off the top of my head, so maybe this will be my first. Then we have another anthology collection that I wish we got in the summertime, because this just screams summer to me. Obviously, it's called Mermaids Never Drown by Zoraida Cordova and Natalie C. Parker. Those are the editors, and I love Zoraida Cordova quite a bit. And there's some other authors in here you will recognize. Darcy Little Badger just contributes to all the anthology collections, and I kind of love that. Kaylin Bayron's in here as well. Are those the only ones? Oh, Adriana Herrera is a popular author. June Hurt. Oh, Julie Murphy, who I love. Carrie Maniscalco. So a lot of authors that I recognize. I am here for mermaid stories. I am always looking for those. And this seems to be a good variety of stories. It says a Vietnamese mermaid caught between two worlds, a siren who falls for Poseidon's son, a boy who's secretly pining for a merboy who saved him years ago, a storm that brings humans and mermaids together, generations of family and secret pain. Find all these stories and more in this gripping new collection that will reel you in from the very first page. So you can see why I wish it came out in the summertime, but I'm just happy to get it whenever. Okay, just a few more. We have a YA, and this is If I Have to Be Haunted by Miranda Sun, and it says some ghosts you can't ignore. It's a thrilling, romantic, irresistibly fun YA contemporary fantasy debut following a teenage Chinese-American ghost speaker who reluctantly makes a deal to raise her nemesis from the dead. I'm realizing we have a lot of enemies to lovers on this list as well, which, you know what, one of my favorite tropes. So this follows Kara, who obviously can speak to ghosts, but her mother just ignores this fact, doesn't want her to practice in speaking to ghosts. But one day she's walking through the woods and she finds the body of this boy that she hates, and she agrees to resurrect him against her mother's wishes, and I'm guessing they have some kind of romance here. I saw somebody compare this next book to Tasha Suri, and I instantly added it to my TBR, of course. This is The Pomegranate Gate, and it's by Ariel Kaplan, and this is actually just an epic fantasy. So if you're looking for something like that, here you go. And it's also being compared to Naomi Novik and Catherine Arden, who I adore Catherine Arden. And Naomi Novik, I really did like Spinning Silver, and when you compare those three authors, you exactly understand the vibe that you're getting here, and it's a vibe that works for me, especially in fantasy. And it is an heartfelt Inquisition era Jewish epic fantasy. It says Toba Paris can speak but not shout. She can walk but not run. She can write with both hands in different languages but has not had a formal education. The only treasure Toba has dared to keep is a precious star sapphire set in a necklace she must never take off. It is brimming with folkloric wonder, and it weaves history, myth, and magic into an exquisite tale of fate, legacy, and friendship that will leave readers spellbound. So I think this is the first in a series, and it looks really beautiful. I don't know what's going on this cover, but I'm kind of here for it, and this is And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. And it's a mind-bending, razor-sharp look at motherhood and mental health that follows a young Indigenous woman who discovers the picture-perfect life she's always hoped for may have horrifying consequences. So this follows a character named Alice who thinks she has a picture-perfect life, and she is married, just had a baby girl, moved to like a prestigious community in Toronto where she is the only Indigenous woman, and things are not as perfect as they seem. She's struggling to connect to her daughter. Her mom just passed away. Obviously she's feeling very isolated in their neighborhood, and she's hiding all this from her husband. And then things start to get a little more sinister. She's losing time, she's hearing voices, her neighbors are acting more passive aggressive than usual, and her husband's telling her it's all in her head, but she just knows that is not true. This next one I'm not sure about because it is by Shelby Maharan, who wrote Serpent and Dove, and while I loved Serpent and Dove, I thought that was a fun time, I really didn't like the rest of the series, so I'm not sure if I will pick up Scarlet Veil, but I'm definitely curious about it, and we'll wait for all of you out to review it, and I will read your reviews and decide if it's one I want to pick up. But there are vampires. You know I'm a vampire girl, so that is more likely, and it's set in the same world as Serpent and Dove, I believe, which with the world was kind of interesting. It did get a little bit confusing for me. I don't know. I'm torn on this one, but I did want to put it on this list because it is something that is on my radar. So this follows a character named Celie who surprised everyone by becoming the first huntswoman in the kingdom, and somebody is going around murdering people, leaving their bodies drained of blood, so I wonder what they could be. So it says that she is determined to prove herself in her new role, and she catches the attention of the king, a monster who hides his plans for her behind beautiful worlds and sharp smiles. Now Celie has a new reason to fear the dark, because the closer it gets, the more tempted she feels to give into his dark hunger and her own. So yeah, tempted, curious, but we will see. And that is it. We made it to the end. I'm sure there are tons that I'm missing, but I tried to keep this at a reasonable length. And so if I did miss any that you're excited about, let me know about them in the comments. If any of these are new to you or on your radar, I would love to talk about them. Thank you again for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.